Endelea kutazama Citizen Town Hall ambapo hii leo tunaendelea tu na mdahalo kuhusiana na jinsi ya kupambana na majanga na hata kuepuka majanga ili kuweza kuhakikisha kuwa watu wako salama. Na nataka tu kuchukua baadhi ya maswali ambayo bado tuko nayo. Tampatia Dennis sasa nafasi aweze kuuliza swali lake.
Swali langu ni how has the police service put in place measures to ensure that when there is a disaster, the police officers treat those affected and those families of those people who have affected in a humane manner, so that to avoid the push and pull that we always see around the police officers chasing away people. The study case, what happened in Moi Girls, Nairobi.
Kuna swali lingine hapo kutoka kwa mrembo ambaye alisema anatoka Budalangi kuhusiana na masuala ya mafuriko.
My name is Naomi Buses. My question was, what are the measures the government has put in place to ensure that the places or areas prone to disasters do not experience the same issues? For example, what happened at Nakuru, the dam that took many lives. So what is the government doing to ensure that the compensation is done maximally to the aggrieved?
Okay. Pius, we'll start with you. I asked for brief responses because our time is almost up. Your response, police officers, how can they be more humane even as they deal with the kind of environment that a disaster is?
Thank you very much. I know I'm a police officer and I'm aware that police officers are taught human rights and policing. It is important that they adhere to human rights standards when handling human beings during disasters. And as I said before, disaster management is community approach. It's about all of us. When it happens, the police are not there. It's you who is there. So the issue of civic education, as my colleague asked earlier on, is very important. That ask your neighbor, is he or is she aware of civic education about disaster management? So police officers are human and they are adhering.
But if that was the case, blanket case, then you don't need IPOA, you don't need all the investigations that happen around police conduct. Do some need retraining? Have you ever felt that concern yourself?
I can tell you it's just an individual attitude. We cannot condemn or call name for everybody, name of others. It's about you and me. Because it's a responsibility for each police officer to know that they need to observe and follow the law, and within the law there are human rights standards. So issue of disaster management, as the Honorable Maura said, issue of even the people who are vulnerable. Police officers, they have a responsibility to work alongside multi-agencies because it's about all of us. And there's no disaster that you'll see police alone. It's about multi-agency approach, and their main responsibility is taking the responsibility of being an incident commander. But will be the initial incident commander, it's you, the public. So it's important that when there's that transfer of command from you yourself, you should start handling the public with humane. When the police come in, even if they do anything wrong, tell them, no, this is not the way to do. So it's about all of us. Okay. You correct yourself, yes.
Although,
yes.
Can you tell a civilian honestly to lecture a policeman? The policeman is the one in power. It's the powerful one. Are you being fair to make such a statement?
The policemen, they are human beings like you, and they are not supposed to do things contrary to the law. What I know, they need to work alongside with you as civilian. And that's why it's important for you to understand your rights, to understand disaster management as a civic education to everyone.
But okay, so it's important for them to understand their rights, but you don't believe the police need retraining. You believe the training that the police receive as of now is adequate.
Training is a continuous process.
Okay.
And you cannot say that you have trained enough. Even me, I'm still training, and I'm 56 years old. I'm not young. You understand?
Okay.
So training is a continuous process.
Okay.
Whether you trained yesterday, you need to train today. And a skill need to be practiced. So it's up to us. When you see something that is not happening to standard, you can say no to that thing, then correct it at your level.
Fair enough. Honorable Maura, the issue of disasters, flooding in Budalangi, Solai Dam tragedy. She wants to know, where's the follow-up? What's Senate, Parliament doing to ensure that such tragedies don't happen again?
First and foremost, I think I must say the people of Budalangi, if you look at the way in which the government has also come into that area and tried to develop. I was there. The Sigiri Bridge the people of Marenga, the people of Sioport, and all of that. And you can see there's some level of development, that is going on there, and a lot of economic activity, including fishing. But still a lot remains to be done. Now, interestingly, Wahiga, November 12, 1980, one Koigi wa Amwere had warned about the Solai Dam. On the floor of the House of Parliament, we in the Senate took a lot of time. We had a task force. We went and even saw what had happened there in Solai, and we made various recommendations. Now, the work of Parliament is to debate, is to look into issues, to interrogate, and anybody can appear before us when we need information from them. When we make a report, it is the prerogative of the executive to so implement.
How far is the report of Solai Dam?
Now, this is what I'm coming to. If you look at, if we had listened to, as a country, to Koigi wa Amwere in 1980 about the Solai Dam, it would not have happened. And when we were debating this report, there were very powerful forces, business in nature, political, people in high offices, who are trying to actually stop, even the debating of this report, the investigations. In fact, at some point, one of our very own senators came to stop that debate under the aegis that it was a sub judice issue. So you can see sometimes people say that human rights are virtual, corporate rights are real, you see. So business overrides, human life. And I think this is something we need to really think as a country. We should not be able to value that people who are making money are more important than the lives of the people that they are actually endangering.
So when will Kenyans be able to access that report, in your honest view?
So the issue is, to enforce this kind of, legislation and reports and what have you, it is important for both the National Assembly and the Senate, because it is the House of Origin, to pass through this disaster management bill.
Okay.
But also for the executive to take up the recommendations of parliamentary reports, so that then it's not just a question of law. Some are actually administrative measures that will help in terms of building the resilience so that we can reduce the disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still haven't answered my question. Solai Dam report, when will it be made public?
It has been public. It is very public. You can even get it. We discussed on the floor of the House. You can even get it from the Hansard report. It's a very public document.
From the Hansard report?
From I'm talking about the Senate Solai report.
Yes, the Senate Solai report.
That one is very public. And we debated, it is actually, you can get a copy.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Mashrima.
Yeah.
Na mwacha sasa nimpatie Michael Gitau ambaye pia anahusika na masuala kama haya aweze kutupatia tu kauli yake kuhusiana na jinsi tunaweza kujisaidia zaidi.
Thank you. My name again is Michael Gitau, Emergency Services and Safety Consultant. My point, because from what I've heard going back and forth from my colleague from the left to the right, is that we have different disasters in this country. Now, in Nairobi, I've had it being addressed. If you look in a case of fires, you look in a case of collapsed building, the issues again, even the accessibility of the building, we have tried to look in that. But my segment moves slightly beyond that. What is happening to the other counties as well? Because some point, even from the panelists here, there are more of even students here. They are asking us, what are we doing? Personally, we are educators. We try to educate, but how many people do we reach out to? So my point, I'll come straight to you, Honorable, is this bill that we are passing it, then, because it seems that you're taking too long to pass it, because personally I've participated in some of them, and it's really annoying to go through back and forth and back and forth. It's like you're trying to reinvent the wheel, which loses meaning. Now, the other point I would just say is,
so what's your question?
How soon can this be done, and whom do we bring on board? Apart from the legislation part of it, what other mechanism can we bring on board so that we can move as a whole country, not about only Nairobi, what is happening to Garissa, Moyale, or Turkana and the rest of the counties?
Okay, thank you so much. Honorable Mwaura, directed to you.
Yeah, I think it is important that the National Assembly passes the bill as with whatever reservations or comments that they may make, so that they can come back to us if we need to go for mediation. It's good to educate Kenyans. It's a very long, laborious process. As we can make comments after that, we go for mediation. If we agree, then it goes for the presidential assent. So it's really a matter of, urgency, because we do not want the the 12th Parliament to go down without having passed this bill, and also the National Physical Planning Act. It's also very important as a constitutional legislation. But I think in terms of ministerial responsibilities, in terms of how to deal with disaster, just like we have done with gender, disability, HIV and AIDS, we need to have disaster management committees in ministries, departments and agencies, so that they keep on preparing the civil servants, the public servants, because I've seen a nexus between that and how the public is able to be sensitized. And this also should cascade to county governments, so that then we also see how governors, the CECs, the chief officers are also able to be responsible in terms of how they sensitize the community. I think that is not something that needs to be waited for in law. The other thing that also I think we need to do is to ensure that the county legislations, because this is actually kind of a devolved issue, and it's a shared one. The county legislations also have teeth to bite. Is there a legislation? Are there resources allocated? Because if you look at every resources allocated, even for CDF, you have money for emergency. But what is this emergency? It's like people feel this money you can use anyhowly.
So they allocate it as they deem fit.
Yeah, because then what is emergency? So we also need to make sure that there are proper guidelines on how these funds are utilized. And if they are not, because even at the national level, we have 5 billion shillings we set aside for emergency, the monies must also be recollected back for future use.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, Mashima.
Kuna mwalimu hapa Wahiga nataka kumpatia fursa aweze kuuliza swali lake.
Okay, si swali vile lakini maybe I should say this in English. Yeah, UNICEF developed the protocol for schools that is concerned with the creation of safe spaces for children. At the same time, we believe, and it's very clear, that victims of disasters mostly are children. What is the Red Cross doing to ensure that children are safe in this country and they are not victims of disasters, and that this curriculum that is being taught in schools is also integrated into matters of disaster management, so that we develop a culture of preparedness?
Okay, so I can take that straight away. So I think it's a logical question to ask. First of all, let's talk about charity begins at home. So let's talk about what Kenya Red Cross does in the space of child protection. So we take child protection very seriously as an organization. We have a child protection policy. Basically how our staff and volunteers, whoever is attending to disasters, must behave with children, including all our suppliers for our services. It's extremely important. But coming to the child and protecting the child first and foremost, when we do our programming, whether it's a disaster response or a regular program, these children are at our forefront in the way we think. For example, when we just talked about the recent flooding, so we know we had a bad flood last year, and we know many Kenyans were affected last year. And when we do things like even a health outreach, for instance, so you go to a place where people are marooned, need health care, we know there will be children coming for immunization, we create child-friendly spaces where children can be kept aside, they can be looked after, they can be kept away from abuse, because that is generally the time when children are abused, when things are a bit chaotic. Talk about Kenyatta Beach in Mombasa. We are always manning first aid security points. Our number one customers are children who get lost, because during Christmas you can have 3,000, 4,000 people on the beach. It's very easy, and some of these children come from up country, first time coming to Mombasa, and then the child gets lost. He doesn't even know where he comes from. We have those child protection spaces that we keep.
Are there specific things you need to think about when you think of children in a disaster?
Absolutely. There are many things, and you need to think differently for the girl child and differently for the boy child, because they have different needs, and even age-wise, segmentally, because we know some children are reaching sexual maturity as well, and some are not. So there are many different ways we think about this. UNICEF is very strong in this kind of advocacy. We're one of UNICEF's biggest partners, and to do that we have to meet certain standards in terms of child protection.
Okay.
It's something we take very seriously, yes.
Okay, I believe in the interest of time, we'll take maybe one or two more, Mashrima.
Na mwacha tuchukue mawili ndio yaweze kujibiwa wakati mmoja. Tuanze na wewe Christine.
I'm Christine, a student from Pioneer International University, and also I live in Laikipia County, next to the ranch company. So my issue is about the conflict that we have with the wild animals. So we have farmers in Laikipia, and we have the wildlife. So what happens to farmers who are farming, and then the wildlife get to feed on the crops for the farmers, and then we have to report, and then the process is too long for the farmers. So what is maybe the counties, or what does the government do to ensure that these farmers are compensated for the losses that they incur? Yes.
Na swali hilo litajibiwa tu, lakini nataka kumpatia Winnie naye swali. Nafasi rather.
Okay, my issue is of concern is that before we put too much blame on the government, what is our take? What role do we take as citizens to prevent these disasters from occurring? Look at food security in our country. Which measures have we taken into consideration to ensure we have enough to feed us during maybe drought seasons? Say of that. Thank you.
Okay, two questions there. I also have a contribution from Constant Kapp, who's an urban planner. Let's get the microphone over to him because I know he also wants to weigh in on this. Pius, I'll take this as your last word because our time is almost up. Someone has asked about wildlife conflict. I'm not quite sure we have the right experts here for that, but if you want to weigh in on that, you can, even as you summarize for us your thoughts about disaster management. What should we be focusing on as a country in June 2019?
Actually, as you're aware that we are missing some of the experts related to that. But as you are aware that disasters are caused by different hazards. As that one of wildlife, you realize the issues that wildlife people need to answer in terms of compensation when it affects the people. But as you are aware that there are also farmers involved, and there are also pastoralists, I know. So it's important that through legislation, as we are aware that we don't have the proper national legislation, but issue of the way people are compensated, there are issues involved through wildlife legislation, which I cannot answer because I'm not the best expert there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that. What's your last word on this subject for today? Your last thoughts?
My last comment is that I want to appeal to our Kenyan people to develop an attitude of enhancing safety culture. When you have a neighbor, you are the person who assists this neighbor. So it's important that we develop the culture of civic education to everyone without minding whom you are telling something that, are you safe? Then that person tells you you are safe. Because when an incident happens, you are the person who starts managing that incident at the level of low level as the incident commander, and you can transfer the responsibility to government agencies when they come in to assist you. So it's about all of us being responsible. Okay. And also I caution drivers right now. There are a lot of slippery roads and forks along the roads. Let them drive carefully, slowly, don't rush, because they need to check the tires, the wiper is working, the lights on, and then they drive carefully, ensuring that they take care of the people they are carrying.
Okay, Ayaz, your last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think before I go home would be nice if whoever is watching and the audience over here, I want every Kenyan to not disempower themselves. It's easy to say, government, what is the government doing? What are agencies doing? What is the Kenyan Red Cross doing? It's true. It is fair for everyone to ask the government, to ask agencies, what are we doing? But we also need to ask ourselves, what are we doing ourselves about it? Like I said, very small things. Get yourselves trained in first aid. It's a good thing. Even your own children one day will need your first aid. Get yourselves, fire safety in your own homes.
Okay.
Like Paris is saying. So feel empowered at every level.
Do we have data on how many Kenyans know first aid?
I would not have those figures.
You would not have those figures. Let's do a quick poll here. How many here know first aid? By a show of hands. Mashrima, hao ni wangapi? 10?
Wachache.
We're looking at about 20% in this.
20% no first aid.
We need to get up to 80%. And that needs somebody to want to empower themselves. But I understand. She's talking about food security. Yes, it's true. We need to improve. She talked about people building on a fire hydrant. Why do we allow it? Why do we let our neighbor build on a fire hydrant? I think we need to take responsibility at different levels so we collectively, as a country, can be more resilient to disasters.
Okay. Before Honorable Mora gives his final thoughts, we have Constant Cap here with us, who has been keenly following the conversation. He's an urban planner who has some thoughts as we wrap up. Constant?
Thank you. Just, to look at, from what we've discussed, I just want to look at it from different perspectives. First of all, as I mentioned earlier on, at the plot level, what are we doing at the plot level to ensure that we have proper ground coverage, proper plot ratios on within construction? It's unfortunate we don't have someone from the planning department here to guide us on that, but maybe it's something that the lady from the county can take back.
She's taking notes, so I believe she's going to take that
in some of these reports. The other area which is also good to have had is now when we move up to a citywide level, when we're looking at access to services. It's good to hear that we are talking about devolving functions such as fire stations, other than having one particular central station. We normally talk of easy access, to places like schools. We talk of easy access to green spaces. We also have to have easy access from these fire stations to certain localities within a particular radius of an area. But I would also like to ask the Senate, our senator here, to please get the Physical Planning Act passed as soon as possible. It's been sitting there in the Senate. We are still using the Physical Planning Act from way back in 1996 with amendments from 1998. And there are some key aspects that come along that act, especially as concerns oversight. Okay, we require
because oversight seems to be the issue.
Exactly, we require liaison committees to be able to question some of the people passing approvals of buildings, passing approvals of projects within counties, and these are not catered for in the current Physical Planning Act because it talks about the chief, the DC, the provincial commissioner, old positions that no longer exist, and it would be nice to have the updated Physical Planning Act passed through so that we can also have that angle being looked upon.
Okay. Thank you, Constant. Very interesting contribution. Senator, delay.
I think it's true. I really participated robustly in the National Physical Planning Act in the last Parliament, and that is something that is certainly very important, not just for the sake of the planners, but also in terms of accessible environments, for the constituency that I represent. So it's very critical for me. Number two is the issue of the human-wildlife conflict. Last Parliament, we passed a very robust legislation, Environment Management Coordination Act, and it's quite clear on how you are supposed to get compensation. So I think I would ask of you that you familiarize yourself with that legislation because it is very detailed. In fact, at some point, we almost felt that we are actually over-legislating. And finally, I think there are very many frameworks that we have, acceded to as a country. For example, the Sendai framework, Pius, that, and also other international, customary laws. But there's something I want to ask of us. If you go back to your home and you don't have a fire extinguisher, there could be issues of affordability or even a plot. Ask yourself a question: what are the measures? Are we the ones contributing to these disasters knowingly out of carelessness or just because we are not careful? And then after that we come saying, Serikali's idea.
From a cost perspective, Senator.
Exactly. So that we look at it from the point of we are also trying to be conscious and so that we protect ourselves. Because certainly, much as the government may have the responsibility, I don't think it can solve all the disaster problems. It's a partnership, really.
So what's a low-cost solution to people here who cannot afford?
I think we need innovation, and I'm sure Kenyans are very imaginative. If you go by the fact that we invented M-Pesa and other kind of things, we can come up with low-cost solutions on how we can reduce it. But one of the things is just to be law-abiding citizens, the rule of law, not the rule of the jungle.
The rule of law, not the law. Okay. Yeah.
Unaendelea kutazama Citizen Town Hall ambapo hii leo tunaendelea tu na mdahalo kuhusiana na jinsi ya kupambana na majanga na hata kuepuka majanga ili kuweza kuhakikisha kuwa watu wako salama. Na nataka tu kuchukua baadhi ya maswali ambayo bado tuko nayo. Tampatia Dennis sasa nafasi aweze kuuliza swali lake.
Swali langu ni how has the police service put in place measures to ensure that when there is a disaster, the police officers treat those affected and those families of those people who have affected in a humane manner, so that to avoid the push and pull that we always see around the police officers chasing away people. The study case, what happened in Moi Girls, Nairobi.
Kuna swali lingine hapo kutoka kwa mrembo ambaye alisema anatoka Budalangi kuhusiana na masuala ya mafuriko.
My name is Naomi Buses. My question was, what are the measures the government has put in place to ensure that the places or areas prone to disasters do not experience the same issues? For example, what happened at Nakuru, the dam that took many lives. So what is the government doing to ensure that the compensation is done maximally to the aggrieved?
Okay. Pius, we'll start with you. I asked for brief responses because our time is almost up. Your response, police officers, how can they be more humane even as they deal with the kind of environment that a disaster is?
Thank you very much. I know I'm a police officer and I'm aware that police officers are taught human rights and policing. It is important that they adhere to human rights standards when handling human beings during disasters. And as I said before, disaster management is community approach. It's about all of us. When it happens, the police are not there. It's you who is there. So the issue of civic education, as my colleague asked earlier on, is very important. That ask your neighbor, is he or is she aware of civic education about disaster management? So police officers are human and they are adhering.
But if that was the case, blanket case, then you don't need IPOA, you don't need all the investigations that happen around police conduct. Do some need retraining? Have you ever felt that concern yourself?
I can tell you it's just an individual attitude. We cannot